Are we on? Yeah, we're on. Thank you. All right, let's call the meeting to order for the Water Management Committee meeting this Thursday, July 29th, 2 p.m. Are there any comments out there in the public anywhere? How about all the call-ins, Chris? Anybody? Crickets, okay. All right, we move on to the Groundwater Authority. Chuck, anything to report there or any plans for the coming meeting?
It wasn't a, sorry about that. It wasn't a real detail, there wasn't a whole lot in the meeting. They did pass resolution 623, and what that did was enabled the president and vice president of the board to approve any letters that got sent out on behalf of the board for legislative issues. The reasoning behind that, according to Mr. Hall, was to not delay any response that the board may have. I did oppose that. I thought that it would be important that they polled each person on the board and said, my opinion was there were 7 people on the board, and that if we needed to have an emergency meeting via phone or Zoom or whatever we needed to do, we could do that to get the opinions. But they voted against that and voted to go ahead and proceed forward. So that did pass 4-1. So now all they need to do is ask the president and vice president, and as long as it is in line with how the board has been voting, they said that they could make that decision, so that did pass. Let's see.
On that issue, could you make any conclusions of why Mr. Phil Hall made the comment that we had to do this because the water district opposed something that we didn't?
Yes.
What was that? I couldn't figure out what he was saying.
When I questioned it, he did indicate that, I believe his words were, one of the main reasons we're doing this is because the water district opposed Senate Bill 560 and wrote a letter in opposition. And he said he had not seen that letter yet, and I informed him that we did, in fact, vote, and we did write a letter of opposition of 560. And he said that is why they needed to take this action, one of the reasons, so.
I'm sorry, I can't put 2 and 2 together there, but I just can't.
So that is what happened, and so they moved forward from that. The other thing, we did approve the Department of Water Resources request for supplemental monitoring during the wet conditions to test for any influx from the releases and the rain to see if anything increased. And basically that was it. We had the Water Resources report, General Manager report. They did approve the audit that we finally did receive. I did have a opposition statement on the audit. There was a small detail in one of the fine bottom paragraphs that said that the water district would continue to pay the replenishment fee even if it was found to be unjustified by the court, and that the district would continue to pay that. And I said that I disagreed with that statement, and I thought that should be removed, because if it was found, we were paying all of our payments under protest, and I did not feel we would continue, in my opinion, to pay if it was found invalid in court. So,
Yeah, I saw that paragraph too, and it read, the way I read it was that if they lose the objections to the fee against, with Mojave and such, then in other words, if they're, and the Searles Valley, if they win their lawsuits, then we will continue to pay
that's the
after
way
that. And I also almost interpret it as that, well, if they lose that money from them, then we're going to continue to pay till we make up the whole 50 million or whatever they're asking for. And that one bothered me too. But then when you read those things, Chuck, you have to realize that that's lawyer speak. That's like hold harmless clauses in contracts. They really make you feel good, your client, they make you feel good, but they're really meaningless because you can't sign away your rights to sue or do anything you want. So those are just clauses to make everybody feel happy. So the more I looked at it, I didn't really worry about it too much.
And it just didn't strike me well, so I did want it on record.
Yeah.
I did vote to approve the audit,
Yeah.
but I did want to be on record that I was not agreeing with that statement.
Yeah, it was sort of a iffy statement there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then the only other thing that I want to mention about the Groundwater Authority that struck me last week, a letter did get written I'm not sure, I've not seen it in the paper yet, so I don't know how it came out on letterhead, but when I received the letter in my email, it was written on the letterhead of the Groundwater Authority, and it was from the general manager, so I plan on addressing that at the meeting, because I know they did pass that a letter could be sent on behalf of the board if it was legislation, but this letter was written to the newspapers as a press release, and I did not agree with the
Yeah, it's a
letter.
press release, that's right,
So,
yeah.
I plan on addressing that also.
And that was only sent to one paper, if you didn't know that.
No, I did not.
Pat never got it.
Are you referring to the op-ed about Las Posas Fox
Yeah,
Canyon?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, you wonder about, it's up to the papers, whatever their policy is on those type of things. Anybody can send them any kind of letter and say, this is an announcement or something, please publish it. But, yeah, we won't even go into that letter. I'm sure you can see enough in the newspapers about it.
And that was my only thought was if it came out with my name on the letterhead, I did not approve the letter. And so I did not want the public to think that I approved the letter because I'm not in agreement with everything that was stated in the letter.
So what you're asking, I agree with you, is that in future letters, that unless you and the district approve of it, however you want to do that, then maybe they need to make a statement in there and saying,
This is without.
this release was approved by XX, and, rather than everybody, that's up to them if they want to do it. If you can talk them into it, good luck.
Yeah, well, if the board votes to approve a letter, that's fine. If it's a 4-1 vote, if it's a 3-2 vote. If they approve to put the letter out, then it shows that there was opposition.
Right,
And
because-
that's what I think should happen.
Your name will be in the letterhead
Correct.
regardless. They just need to state in the statement
Correct.
somewhere that it's not. Yeah, okay.
And basically, that's all I had on the Groundwater Authority.
All righty. And we haven't seen their agendas or anything yet for next one, but we'll know that before our next board meeting. We should.
No.
We should have, our board meeting's on Monday and theirs on Wednesday. So will we have?
we
their-
should get 'em on
we should have a
Monday.
packet? Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. Any comments out there? No? All right. The LAPD aqueduct water release. I see we're still flowing pretty good from the pictures I saw today.
Yeah, so as you know, releases are continuing from 2 of those 5 sites within the basin. The Boulder Draw, Bird Springs, Indian Wells sand traps still remain off due to concerns primarily related to flooding coming from those sources. So as of yesterday, there's an estimated 8,523.5 acre feet that's been released. That right now is more than 4 times what was released in 2017, according to the records we have. As you see on the updates I send you every day, the leading edge is advancing and receding sometimes as much as miles in a single day, which is really
Crazy.
it's really mind-boggling. At times, it's receded all the way west of Red Rock Canyon Road, only to advance almost all the way up to Inyokern Road in a matter of 24 to 48 hours. We did file an amended notice of exemption, as you know, on May 16th with language that didn't limit us to the project for hand-placing sandbags because we talked about other less costly and laborious alternatives that were available, including sand dams similar to what Kern County did back in 2017. That amended notice of exemption did restart a 30-day clock. Also, we did file with Fish and Wildlife the stream alteration agreement. That was filed on May 19th. We finally got a response from them on June 19th. And in that response, they requested more detail on the project, including the source of the material that was going to be used, how would it be imported, how the temporary dams will be dismantled, and how that material will be disposed of, how the determination will be made when to remove the dams, and how impacts to desert tortoise and Mojave ground squirrel will be avoided if the flows go over top of the banks of the wash. So they wanted a lot more information. They also said in that letter that we should expect a 30-day period for their staff to review that information, and then 60 days for approval.
Yeah.
So our thought was, by that time, the releases are probably going to be much less, if not totally complete. So it's going to require a lot of staff time to do that. So based on what we've been seeing, the significant movements back and forth, and the fact that it doesn't seem to be an imminent danger to the base like we thought it when this first started, we think that the focus should be on focus of our resources to be on long-term capture future releases.
Yeah, I was going to ask about
And
that.
we're just watching on a daily basis. But again, even when it crossed the New Kern Road, it wasn't a torrent. It was just a little trickle going through there. So,
I like the way it comes and goes, the way it's up here and then way back here.
well, like I said, I did it on Google Maps, and in one day, and this has happened a couple times, almost 7 miles as the crow flies, that it moved. That's it's hard to believe that would happen.
Does Tim have anything to say about that? I just wonder if any geologists weigh in with any potential reason. I just don't see any.
I've talked about
Several
it with both
miles.
Chuck and Tim, but yeah, 7 miles is a long way for that thing to go. And the weird thing is, that you'd think it would, advance during the night and recede during the day, but it's been the opposite, where it
Yeah.
advances during the day and recedes at night. And so I don't know what the explanation is, but we're certainly hoping to learn some things from this whole episode.
Well, I'm glad you're going to continue with long-term, because if this is what we're seeing now, it could happen again. I was reading a little bit more in depth about this El Nino pattern that's here.
One observation is that, where those dams were, how it was in a channel and then it was dammed. Once those dams washed out,
It goes,
it's spread out laterally. And so now, and that maybe one factor in why this is happening is now you got a broader area, that water's spreading out over a broader area. And so it's probably more subject to evaporation and even into percolation too. Yeah.
how did the county ever get away with, remember how quickly, what was it, 5-6 years ago? No, 2017, wasn't it? When the
Yeah.
county out there built those? Remember they got them just done just like that?
Don't ask.
Ask for forgiveness.
Is that what, okay, ask for forgiveness. But, back on the long term, that needs to continue, obviously,
You know
because
how-
I think this is something we're going to see more of.
Supervisor Gleason was,
Yeah, that's right. We'll just get it
get
done.
it done.
That's that Navy attitude.
Yeah.
But long as we're still working on long term, because like I've read, that we can expect this type of weather pattern for quite a few years if everything holds on the prediction for El Nino, which they said is here. All that moisture is going to come up out of the ocean, especially come wintertime, and expect this again. I got my fingers crossed. You never know with Mother Nature, but if it is to occur, then hopefully LADWP knows that we can't continue like this, where we just release and release and release,
Yeah.
and be able to control it all the time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we need to work on a program for a banking or some type
Yeah,
of
yeah.
a system with TWP, because I do believe that we'll have a snow carryover. I've been watching some reports and reading.
Oh,
that
yeah.
For the first time in a long time, they're talking that the snow will not all melt
By the time next snow
by the
comes.
time the next snow comes.
And knowing about LADWP, I feel strongly that it'd be nice if we could just put some injection wells where all this stuff goes in, but then they're giving it to you free, right? Because you're doing them a favor. I would think in the long run, LAWP would look for something for their advantage, which is banking. If I was them, that's what I would do. Hey, all this water's going away now. If we could just bank it, we're better off. So I'm sure they're thinking about
Well,
that.
I'm sure, and they would have to bank it.
Yeah.
If we did injection, they would have to have a treatment facility and everything else
Yeah.
before they could inject it all the way down to the water.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think this is going to happen, but should something change and all of a sudden a big flood goes towards the base and there's
Yeah.
concerns about it, I think Renee's talked to Fish and Wildlife. We can do an emergency. You can take an
can we?
action, and then you have, 14 days to file for an application. So if something really changes and there's a big torrent of water going to the base and we need to do something, we
Affect
could.
property?
We could take an
Yeah.
action. But my concern is always I've voiced is that, if they have this level of concern and want to know all the information, what if we do something and then we
Yeah.
file the application, they say, you didn't do this, right? Are we subject to fines? So I don't anticipate we'll be in that position, but I don't think we want to put ourselves in that position where we're doing something and then have to face the, Fish and Wildlife scrutiny and say, you shouldn't have done that, you should have done it this way. So,
It's,
but I don't think that's going to happen.
It's interesting. I hope we see it for quite a few years. I mean, knock on wood, but it's something that can do us good, and hopefully through some of the well monitoring, where we might see something. I don't know that we will or not. It's hard to say, but the monitoring that they're doing. All right. Anything else, Don?
Not on that topic, no.
All righty. How about we're back on the recycled water potential?
We just keep that on the agenda.
All righty.
That goes back to the January 24th board workshop. Part of the,
You, well, I
as
was
part of
gonna
the
give him
potential
Stan's comment.
strategic planning effort, But we haven't had any meetings to date, so go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know how you want to address this, but Stan told me that he went to Republican Women's, and I don't know if Scott Heyman was speaking or he just happened to be there, but I guess he said it in front of the whole crowd, so he might have been speaking. And someone asked about recycled water. He says that they're not able, they can't find anybody who's interested in recycled water. The Water District's not interested, and Sherrills Valley Minerals is not interested. And Stan said, I wanted to say, get up and say something. I was afraid what I might say. So he didn't say anything. So just to let you know that you have a council member that is basically stating that the Water District doesn't want to deal with the city on the recycled water. And I think it goes back to that original letter. They wanted us to agree, the original agreement, what, 5 years ago? Something like that. We had to sign away all rights if we signed this letter, and then we have forgiven this fee and that fee. And I think that's where it goes. But just to let you know that that's what one of the council members is saying. And I'm not sure what we can do about that or say about it, or we should do anything about it. But it's just out there.
Well, I think it's important that next month in the meeting, when the general manager or Stetson is giving his report on recycled water, I want to make sure that I will bring it up at the meeting that we had heard that, and I've also got a phone call from somebody who was at the dinner that said that they had heard the same thing, where was the Water District not interested?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that
I'll be there to
it's out
see
there.
that, because I'm sure Scott's going to have a comment.
You know, Stetson completed that technical report on what's the best use for recycled water. So that's all done, but I suspect what's happened is, you know, resources for Stetson enough are devoted now to this pipeline project. That's the focus. So recycled water is kind of fallen down the ladder, if you will, of priorities. But I think we need to keep pushing for it and
Well, yeah,
reminding them that this is something that we're interested in. It's a priority for the district.
Because don't forget, the findings from the report basically found what we found. You know, after they spend whatever money, it's basically the same thing. The best thing is take the water, treat it, re-inject it and such. But what's stated is that they can't find anybody who wants that water, whether they're treating it to tertiary or whatever. So that's what I guess that's the city's stance. If Scott is saying it, I don't know. But Chuck, I think it's worth an ask to him, because I think that the people need to know that we are still interested in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
To say the word roadblock, I think is not a true statement. All right. Anything else on recycled water? Let's keep this as a placeholder. Maybe you'll get some action, Chuck. Brackish water, same old there, not much.
Not too much. Just a reminder, the 2022 fourth quarter quarterly report, the number 6 invoice package, and the technical memorandum on RO membrane performance modeling, and the 2022 annual report. Those were uploaded to grants on May 22nd. The Department of Water Resources did review those documents. They came back with some minor changes, mostly to change a couple of dates. Those changes were made, and then the revised documents were submitted the same day, and to my knowledge, they've been accepted, so I think everything's caught up to date. The final steps, as I said before, still working on the draft feasibility study document, the report, and that would include the evaluation of shallow well impacts in the study area based on the predicted drawdowns that are in the DRI model. Study's still scheduled for wrap up in December, end of December. I don't see any reason why we won't meet that date.
Is that a project are all the other partners, are they interested in continuing that wherever they can? As some sort of, and I still sort of view brackish water as more of a stopgap, because I don't know that the DWR would ever consider that new water. Yes, I'm saying?
No, and we've said that all along. The
Yeah.
brackish group has always said that and responded to the groundwater authority with that in that manner. It's a project that buys you some time. It's
Okay.
water that's not being used currently. It can be put to use to buy us some time. As you know, the import water project is probably years away.
Yeah.
So brackish water, if we could do something there, may buy some time. And you know, pumping brackish water could help us with our potable water supply by pumping water and preventing it from being drawn into areas where we have good production wells.
Okay. Yeah.
And it also helps with the salt nutrient management plan, removing salts from the basin.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on that?
No,
Nothing from the audience, nothing from online, okay. Geez, Chris, can't you go, why don't you go out and solicit people to listen? Yeah. Okay, all right, on to alternate water sources.
okay, not much happening in the first part of this one. John Jansen with Collier Geophysical, he still hasn't completed his final draft report on the seismic reprocessing work that he's done. I did reach out to him again this week. I try and get updates for this committee. He did finally, he responded this morning, and he acknowledged that he had received edits from Tim Parker. He was expecting to incorporate those into his report by tomorrow and then get Tim's approval on the changes. And he said he also needs to start collecting the data to put it in a folder to share. So, but it's taken a long time to wrap this up. It's been probably 3 or 4 months. I've pretty much been reporting the same thing, that he's working on the draft report. So I know he's got other things going, and for a while there, I think for part of last month, he was on travel for quite a bit. But I'll keep on him and get updates, and hopefully we get this draft finalized.
And our intention, when that report is done, is, since I was involved when you started accepting that report, what's the use of it and the intention of using
It's
it
just
for?
detailing what he did in terms of the seismic reprocessing work. You know,
Okay.
we purchased old gas and exploration seismic work, and then they reprocess it. So basically, just a report comparing, I'm going to simplify it, the old data to what the data the reprocessing showed, and interpreting it. So that's all he's doing.
It's all in the El Paso and,
Yeah.
okay. Just strictly to try to identify if there's a new water source out there that we don't know about?
Yeah,
Is that what it's
that's
all about?
part of this, folding into this next subject, but the El Paso subbase and the work that, you know, we've been charged by the board to conduct. Krieger and Stewart and Tim Parker, remember they previously, I think it was in 2021, they put together a drilling exploration program, including the costs based on the data they had at the time. And they've been working to update that. As part of the program, the Department of Water Resources was contacted about financial support for putting some monitor wells in that El Paso area. This is where it becomes kind of convoluted. DWR subsequently was contacted about preparing the application form for monitoring well installations, and things since then have been at a standstill because Tim reports that DWR never responded to the Southern District Office regarding providing the form to submit. The district office indicated that a request should come from the GA and that the basin has already had a monitor well installed. So DWR previously indicated that the district could apply directly, and I've been told that myself. So Tim's not getting response from the lead office for some reason. So he suggests a couple of things. He said either the district reach out directly to Jack Tung, who's with the DWR Southern District, or to Paul Gosselin directly. Another option would be to request support from the Groundwater Authority for DWR drilling additional monitor wells in the El Paso area. But it should be noted, and I think I reported this last month, that the Groundwater Authority, on behalf of the Groundwater Authority, Stetson Engineering is preparing a technical memo with recommendations on exploration in the El Paso Basin. Their intent is to present that technical memo to the Technical Advisory Committee and then include the study in their 5-year update of the GSP. So,
Because if I understand that basin the way it is, it's a bit, I always called it a plateau basin, a little bit higher than us, but I'd be curious to see what it's doing right now. With all the snow melt and everything coming into that basin itself, if there are any wells out there we could tell from? And Chuck, are there any wells that are up in there? And doesn't anything up at Robin's Roost or any of those areas up there, or someone in the near area get into that sub basin up there? I thought you mentioned it before, how they're.
I think the last well that I had looked at would be where Leroy Marquardt.
Okay,
place,
yeah, right, okay,
Out in that area, and that one was coming up, I don't know.
yeah. It'd just be nice to know what's really gone. We could really tell a lot now with all this snow melt, what's going on with that basin, because it's probably overflowing and going into the basin next door. Not coming our way.
That's what I think. So.
Yeah, all right. Anything else on alternate water sources? Anything?
nope.
All right, future agenda items. Do you want to add anything, delete anything? Leave it like it is for a while, Chuck?
Yep.
All right. All right, with that, we will adjourn at 2:25 on the nose.